From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision, Bill Fisher. Their soon-to-be Wonder Woman, Vicky Fisher. Our Captain Marvel and head flight trainee, Jennifer Skripchuk. And our Batman, the master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission, to fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes in Training Team.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
So, Miss Vicky.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember when we were watching those WRL events and some of those Grid Life events where you used to see the in-car video and it had like the cameras seeing front and back, but it also could see all the telemetry and everything that was going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of the ones that we liked were taken by the Sentinel system. Remember James came on our podcast earlier?
Right.
You know, we have no excuse since he lent us one for trial and demonstration purposes. We should actually probably put that in one of our cars. Maybe two.
I really think we should.
I think we should.
I know.
Because then we'd look like the immature endurance racing team that we are. Oh, wait, I mispronounced that, didn't I? Sorry, my bad. We could
So what does the
have,
Sentinel system do?
we could have 3 cameras with picture-in-picture. We could have, if we ever get the AIM system to work, open invitation to anybody from AIM to come on and give us a little bit of love. We need some help. And then we could have all our telemetry on there. And then we can have it streamed live into the paddock or around the world to our millions of fans. We're apparently very popular in Kenya right now. Don't know why, but that's fine. And it can integrate all the available race statistics from like Race Hero and everything. So we could actually see how we're doing on video. We wouldn't even have to carry around our phone anymore. Live.
I love it.
Dominating with Dawson.
Ben Dawson, I have a question.
I have something to say.
Yes, we're not sure if it's an answer. We're not sure if it's an answer, but it's definitely something to say. Miss Vicky,
Yeah,
welcome.
buddy.
So, Mr. Dawson, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about car setups. And they were talking about the difference between setting up the car to be as fast as possible or for a car to be set up so that it's more comfortable for the driver or drivers. And I was wondering which one would be better or fastest, because we've got a front wheel drive Civic that I know for a fact I could set that thing up to be super loose and fast, you know, unstable in the rear, be super fast. But I don't think as a team it would be as fast as it could be if we set it up a different way.
But if Grassroots Motorsports front-wheel drive Honda expert Andy Hollis were here, he could fully maximize your ideal setup, right?
Exactly. I mean, he's got that CRX experience. He's ready to roll.
That's right. If you got Andy Hollis showing up, you want to set it up for optimal lap time on the Grassroots Motorsports tire test track, right? Like, let it hang out. Let me see what this tire can do, big dog.
100%. I think we could set up the Civic to be faster than that McLaren that he drives. Yep, not a problem.
Yeah, that is sort of an age-old question of like, hey, do you set this thing up to be optimal, where the driver or drivers in the squad with the most skill can go make the most out of it, and everybody else kind of has to just drive a car that may not be ideal or may even be to the point of a little unmanageable, and everybody else just sort of has to eat it? Or do you sort of set it up for the masses where everybody has a chance to kind of maximize what they can do, and you might have a net your average pace might be overall better, whereas everybody, you know, you might have one guy who goes out there and smokes everybody, and then everybody else underdrives because they're scared of the thing. It's kind of the extreme example, right?
Yeah, and it could be in the team environment, or it could be, you know, for a single individual driver, especially a newer driver, or maybe somebody who's still on the upswing of their growth. You know, the car may not be the fastest lap, may not be with the fastest car setup, I guess is where I was trying to think about.
Well, yeah, and racing and motorsport in general is an endeavor where you have to catch people coming and going all the time. Because people are always coming into the sport and people are always rolling out. It just happens. People have kids, people get divorced, people get excited about this. People also discover that they can play the guitar. People also discover, yeah, it's just it's a transient thing. Dentist suddenly makes enough money to go to Daytona and race and enter a race one time. He's going to be
Mm-hmm.
on your team. Whatever it is, it's motorsport, and especially team motorsport is a weird amalgamation of people coming and going, and also stalwarts who have been there forever and won't leave because it's the one thing they're good at the most, like me. So yeah, you have to take that into consideration. You can't set every car up like Dale Earnhardt's going to drive it and be able to, handle a loose race car around Daytona and whip everybody's ass. It doesn't come out that way. So I think, even if you could set up a car that would run a car that could run a 2 around VIR with your fastest guy on the squad, great. But everybody else is a little bit scared of it and can only run a 225. So they're 15 seconds off the pace.
Right.
So if you make a car that everybody could easily run 215s in, and then you all go run, they can all run, everybody run effectively 15 seconds faster, and the fastest guy gets slowed down a few seconds. Overall, you're going to be faster throughout an entire endurance event, right?
I believe so. I don't know. Miss Vicky, what do you think?
I think you have to set up your card for the skill levels on your team.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Right. So,
I mean that if your person and those skill sets are going to be on the track, you don't, like you said earlier, you don't want to have your less skilled driver lose control of that car and just wipe out
true. That's
everything.
a risk too. Not
Yeah,
just the fact that it's uncomfortable for them. They could also risk the machinery, right?
Mhm.
Absolutely. And the thing is too, is that, when it comes to, depending on what level of racing that you're at, I mean, these are just my opinions, is that, it's more about not only is it speed, it's just keeping your car intact for
That's a good
endurance
point.
and getting it around the track and fast. It's gas time, it's strategy, it's butts and seats and fast hot
Yeah.
pits. And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
you're right. You're right. Butts and seats is important too. You got to keep it ready for the next person.
you
Can't
you
go out there
have
and risk it.
to. And, depending on some of those races that you're in, and we're talking about, grassroots and, take into consideration this podcast, which is entry level, getting you guys on track, that's what's going to have you rank more
Right.
so, and waiting for other people to make mistakes.
I think you make some good points, especially you being the person who's always throwing the car together and doing the most labor about keeping the cars together. You're like, hey,
And
don't
practice
make it
car
uncontrollable.
empathy.
Yes, car empathy is important. I had this sort of thing literally pop up, and I can tell you all the story if you think it would be illustrative of what we're talking about. But
Let me check. Do we have tape in this computer? Yes.
you got tape in there. It was so. This happened to me while I still only had one kid and a little more freedom to like just hop up and go to VIR in the middle of the weekend. But I think the guys were it was a chump race, champ car, and they were racing. Race Bar was racing their big 7 series, and I forgot what preceded it. But they were like, "Hey, can you come up? We just want to put you in for a few minutes to get your feedback on something the car was doing." So I was like, "Hell yeah, that's great." That was also the day I met Laura Vernon for the first time.
Oh, she's awesome.
So I just, as a side anecdote, I was getting ready to get suited up and go get in a race bar just to spend like 30 minutes in the car just to tell them I forgot what the problem was. They were like, "Hey, what's this car doing?" Whatever. So whatever was going on with race bar, not the story of the day, not what we're talking about, but the driver before me comes swinging in the pits and slams the brakes on the pits, gets out forcefully, like shifting the gears, getting in the pits, like somebody who like shifting and pitting with authority. I was like, who is this? Who is this authoritative race driver? And this person hops out and sees me helmeted up, so just starts running over and talking to me about what the car's doing and how it's doing, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, who the hell is this lady? Turns out that this impressive person who had never been on a racetrack before, I think, or never even raced, was Laura Vernon. I was like, oh, hell yeah. But anyway, so whatever, our race bar was, trying to think. That day was dry, so anyway, the race bar was fine. It was a little loose, but it was fun. Whatever they were doing to it made it more fun and cool. but also it was happened to be Danielle Tripp's first race with Winsome Racing. I can't remember. I think I had to go do some Christmas stuff or something with my kids, so I wasn't going to be able to be there for the whole weekend. But they had done Saturday. This was on Sunday. They had done Saturday, and they're like, "Man, the E30 is just wild. What is going on with this car? It's way different from the last time we raced it. What is going on, Ben? Can you come up here and just drive this thing for a little while and see what you think? Because it is just out of control. Like everybody's a little bit scared of it." And it turned out that we had been trying to chase the champ car rules where you can only get a certain amount of modifications before you run out of points, and then you're not really eligible for contending to win. Mm-hmm. So with that sort of setup and the choices we had made in building our E30, our BMW 325 from the 80s that we were racing, we couldn't afford the points to put on good sway bars. And I forgot there's always so much fudging and BSing that goes on with champ car rules in which you get points for from year to year. At some point, we had figured out, we got enough points now that we could put some fat sway bars on there and really tie the handling together. Also, we had a welded diff, which wasn't a problem for anybody when we had like little spaghetti noodle sway bars because the car wasn't really all that tied together. But once we put the big old fat daddy sway bars on there, suddenly that welded diff became a bigger problem. And the car went to being really loose because that diff just wanted to kick the ass in around every time you hit the gas. So it made a bigger difference. And I think that was ultimately what the big difference was and what people weren't really clocking was going to be different. We could have made some setup changes to going into that to sort of anticipate, hey, this car's likely to be more oversteerish or loose with this change. So nobody was really ready for it. They're like, what's going on with this thing? So I get in the car and hell yeah, that thing is trying to kill me right out of the gate. And I'm like, yes, finally, this car wants to turn. Because every car, I'm like, turn better. I always want more rotation. And suddenly the E30 had more rotation than almost I could handle. But I never went around. I never got close to going around. But I'm like, woo, this is great. So from the outside, it probably looked like a lot was going on when I got in to drive it. But the thing was all over the place. And it took me a few laps to get how loose it was dialed in with how fast it could be. I loved it. I was in heaven.
Wow.
But also it was Danielle's first race ever. And she was like, I'm just getting out there in fourth gear and trying to keep this thing on track without it snapping around on me, which was pretty scary. It's a pretty scary scenario for her. But you jump in the deep end with an ill handling car and you're kind of getting a full dose of what racing is like. But I mean, the thing has been scary for everybody. But I'm out there like, yeah, because I want a car that's not even on the knife edge. I want a car falling off the knife edge especially on the exit of the corner. Like if you give me a loose car on the exit, I can make that into speed, So I was enjoying it, but I could fully see why, oh crap, everybody else is scared of this car. So that was an example for me, a real life example of where setup ended up being our current setup ended up delivering a pretty extreme outcome, right? Like we suddenly had a car that was loose to the point of uncontrollable to almost everybody but me, and then I'm in there like a hamster on a wheel, like let me go, this is great. So the car was loose and it was all over the place, and as I'm figuring it out, I'm just obliterating traffic and crushing everybody, and but still, I mean, I got out of the car saying, yeah, it's wrong. It's wrong for y'all, but it's great for me. You know what I'm saying? Right. So it was a situation where there was one guy on the team who wasn't even supposed to, just like that movie Clerks, I'm not even supposed to be here today. I ended up kind of going up to kind of help a couple of different teams, my team and somebody else sort of analyze the handling. But it turned out race bar, whatever they had done, just made it more fun and a little bit faster. And Winsome Racing, it turned their E30 into a monster that only one man could love,
Yeah. That's kind of hard.
Yeah, to me, that's the example that sticks out in my mind when you talk about setting up a car to be the absolute fastest / scariest versus set it up to be more manageable. Some things we could have done with that car would have been like not to have the adjustable end of the sway bar set on the stiffest setting like we did. We could have softened some stuff up in anticipation, but we just didn't have any idea it was going to make that big of a difference going from kind of the crappy stock sway bars to good ones. So that's my example of it. And it didn't turn out to be catastrophic. Everybody on the team was at least seasoned enough with driving, if not racing, to know, hey, this thing is out of my depth. Like, congratulations to Danielle for not wadding our car up, because she was grounded enough and well experienced enough from having a lot of DE practice. But even though it was her first competition event, she got out there and realized car side of this not going great. So I'm just going to do what I can do and manage the car side of this, and then let everybody else let traffic happen. She was still out there passing people, but getting past where she was passing. But she was safe. She kept the car in the right spot, and recognized that there was an issue with it. So it wasn't ideal for everybody. So yeah, if I had been the only person driving the car that day, great, would have been a good result. But since it was a mix of everybody, and the car was too far out in the deep end for mass consumption, it wouldn't have been the best setup for the day. And we could have set it up softer, and they could have been more successful. And even had, I mean, we ended up having a bunch of extra stops, throwing a guest driver who wasn't even supposed to be there in there that weekend just to see what was going on. So they lost out competitively a lot, that weekend. Just like, hey, let's throw this dude who's not even supposed to be here this weekend. So you're off your pit stop rotation trying to diagnose this thing. So it can get bad. Luckily, it didn't get as bad as it could have been with somebody balling the car up that weekend. I'm glad that they asked, and I was able to kind of come help and figure out what's going on. But yeah, it could have been a less experienced group of people, or a more impulsive group of people could have really balled it up that weekend. But luckily it didn't go bad. And we got it tamed for the next event and got better at it.
Right. Well, and at the same time, is when you have a car that's set up like that, is that the rest of the team cannot drive to their full potential either.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Everybody else has to just back off. Like when the car is scary, lap times go down because everybody just backs off.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't want this. So like I say, if you got a nice neutral setup that everybody can drive, the fastest guy with the crazy setup can drive a 210. Make a more neutral setup that the fastest guy might be able to drive a 215, and everybody else can drive a 220. You narrow that window down, you get everybody kind of more in the zone. So you slow the fast guy down a little bit, but you're also the car's gonna feel a lot better, more balanced, more natural to the people who are not able to exploit the full pace yet.
And that fast driver can drive his full 10/10, knowing he has full control of that car.
Sure. Yes.
He
Ben
could.
Ben just assumes that's what's happening. So
Yeah, Ben's always 10/10. Because really, honestly, they're talking about me.
When wouldn't I be 10/10?
They're talking about me.
Oh, you mean I can go? Okay.
you mean I'm in the car, right? Yes. So this leads me to the secondary part for why we had this question. This can be one of the reasons why you're driving the same car, same in quotes, as somebody else in the paddock, and they tell you what the setup is. It may not transfer directly to your car because you may not be that driver, or another detail within the car is different than the car you have. Do they have a welded diff? Do they have a bigger sway bar? Do they have better tires? Are they better drivers? Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So don't just copy what you know, in quotes, is a fast setup from another car that's the same as yours, because it may not be the fastest setup for you.
Yeah, and in our case, we have been cheap and lazy, and somebody on our team knew I just throw a glob of weld down at the diff and just lock it up. And I'm like, it worked. It worked okay in the rain. It worked out, for us, that cheap ass solution, it worked out okay until suddenly it didn't once you kind of tied too much stuff together. So yeah, it was you're right. It was kind of a cascading snowball of events. And if you just ask me at a track day, Ben, what's the setup? Oh, I'm running these springs. Did I say anything about my diff? No, you know what I mean? Like, it's easy to not give somebody the full picture of what you're doing, even when you think you're being helpful. It's easy to overlook something that's crucial to your car setup when you're describing it to somebody else.
Exactly. And that's not to say there are not people in the paddock at some places that will be maliciously tell you, yes, we run at positive 4 degrees camber.
Right.
Just to mess with you. But no,
that was par for the course. When I was racing karts, oval karting, everything was so close. Everybody was chasing hundreds and tenths. I got there. I think I got some bad advice a couple times and realized I'm not asking anybody anything. There's some people, if somebody was racing a fully different class than me and I respected what I saw them doing on track and saw they had good pace, sometimes I would approach somebody who I was not in any way going to be competitive with and just say, hey, what's going on? How are you doing this? And, if you found the right person who was a buddy, they would help you out. But if it was somebody you're racing against, I mean, I used to keep a tin, like a can with a screw on lid, and I taped black tape all around it. And I would pour that stuff into a rag, wipe it all over my tires. Or if somebody was looking at wipe it on top of the engine or something. And finally somebody's like, hey, what's in that? What do you got in there? Because we were always using little treatments and different oils and different this thing and that thing. It was just water. I just had water in a can that I'd wrap tape around. And I would just use that to psych other people out thinking that I had found some sort of secret additive to put on my tires. I mean, I was also putting secret additives on my tires, but that wasn't it. You know what I mean?
That wasn't it. Yes. So Vicky,
in road course racing, people are not really going to give you too much malicious advice in road course racing. They're just FYI.
No, not as much, for sure.
Less malicious advice.
less often. How about that?
Yeah.
Miss Vicky, you know what we accomplished here?
What's that?
We got to hear Ben do his Dante impersonation.
Yes. Very nice. Very
I
nice.
love that movie. You know what I was just thinking about today too?
Mm-hmm.
I was just I saw myself in the mirror, and I realized I was like, shit, I have gone from sort of looking like 90s Clerks Randall to
Mm-hmm.
looking like Clerks 2 Randall. I realized
Mm-hmm.
like I'm fully like scary looking Clerks 2 Randall at least by this time. I was like, God, I really all the things that have occurred to me today that have wrapped around to us talking about it in the evening. I thought about the manual transmission and putting my hand on the shifter all the time. And I literally thought about Dante and Randall today and how I'm looking like and my face is looking way too much like Clerks 2 Randall. And that was like 20 years ago. Oh crap.
Easily.
Yeah,
Might
I'm
even
in
be
trouble.
more. Actually, it was more.
I'm in huge trouble.
Yeah. So useless fun fact, filmed 5 miles from my house.
No kidding. Film at
Yeah.
night too. That's why they're like, oh, somebody stuck gum in the license. The person would just let them film at night, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
What
Indeed. All
a
right, Ben.
fantastic film.
It was.
Yes.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you guys. That was a fun one.
That was a good one.